Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Alex. I'm a real estate investor, and this is the Equity Odyssey. So today I get the extreme pleasure of getting to interview Josh Ferrari, and he is the owner of Ferrari Capital. He currently has over $75 million in assets under management, 874 units in multiple different asset classes, and he has raised tens of millions of dollars from private investors. So, Josh, super excited to have you today.
Yeah, man. Appreciate the invite. Ready to dive in.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. So doing my research for this podcast and in this conversation, I read a lot about your backstory, and it's pretty awesome, pretty cool story, lots of ups and downs. And would you mind just giving the audience a little bit of your own backstory?
Yeah, it's a lot. We could probably spend the whole podcast interview just talking about the backstory, but I'll sum it up. So I started investing in real estate in January of 2018 with no prior desire to get into anything outside of what I was doing. So I was a full-time aircraft technician at the time. That's what I went to college for. I just recently graduated actually at this time and moved down to Southern Alabama to start what I thought was going to be this long-standing career. Then my dad calls me up, tells me that him and my mom are getting ready to start flipping houses. And honestly, the rest is history. It's a very simple conversation. Never actually flipped a house, but it was that conversation that led to my desire, I guess, about what could be for me in the industry. So the wife and I jumped in almost headfirst after that into wholesaling. We tried that for 6 months unsuccessfully. Spent a couple $100 on like a course and a couple $1,000 on some marketing. Didn't work. Didn't care about it. Didn't want to do any wholesaling. Wanted to own real estate. So we pivoted and bought a fourplex, which was our first legitimate investment. Right now we're super stoked, super excited. We actually own a real estate. We're gonna house hack it, but then none of that happened. Pretty much anything that could have gone wrong went wrong, and we lost about $60,000 on that investment, but learned a lot of valuable lessons along the way. Two of the biggest lessons I think we learned was lack of clarity, which led to lack of focus. And then, we were basically trying to do everything on our own. So we needed to get help. I thought that for whatever reason, if I did it on my own, you get more equity, so you get more upside, so you make more money. Like that was my thought process. And it was clearly small-minded thinking, never having been an entrepreneur or in any kind of business before. And that clearly led to pretty significant failure. So once we realized we wanted to get into larger commercial syndications, there was no chance I was going to try that larger venture where I could lose more money all by myself. So I hired a mentor in February of 2019. It's probably the best decision I ever made, specifically in my investing career. I was underneath him for about 2 years. I met my two business partners during that time frame. We ultimately bought our first deal that my mentor actually sold me, believe it or not. Um, Crazy, right? In December of 2020. So he sold it to us at a $450,000 discount just to help me break into the business. Really wouldn't be where I am today had it not been for that relationship from a variety of different perspectives. You fast forward to today, it's been about 3.5, a little over 3.5 years since we bought that deal. And now, like you said, we've got almost 900 units valued around 75 million bucks. We've raised a total of $27 million of equity from investors to be able to buy those deals. We vertically integrated in 2022, started our own property management company. So we have 12 full-time employees now between the PM company and the acquisitions company. Portfolio currently consists of about 750 multifamily units between A, B, and C class. Then we have about 150 to 160 RV park pads between two assets. And then a couple of months ago, we actually bought our first business completely outside the realm of real estate, con business. It's the first investment we ever bought that we also didn't syndicate. So we used our own money to buy that. So the three of us owned that one outright. I also have my own podcast called Creative Capital that I launched over 4 years ago. It's got over 2 million downloads. Had a lot of fun running that. And then lastly, we also have a mastermind that we launched in the summer of 22, coming off the cusp of after about 18 months of buying commercial deals, finally making enough money to quit corporate America, go full time in my business. I decided to create something very similar to the relationship structure I had with my mentor when I got started, which is a very personal relationship. Uh, so that's a little bit about what we've been up to in the last 6.5 years.
Yeah, it's quite the journey. It's super impressive what you've been able to accomplish in that time. And a common theme I hear from everybody who is, extremely it accomplishes so much in so little time is that mentorship piece. The question is, that's such a crucial piece and it's obviously needed. How do you go about finding the correct mentor, vetting the mentor? Like, what does that process look like to ensure? Because that can, it seems like at least that can be like a make or break piece here.
It definitely can be. You could spend, some of these programs cost 40, 50, 60. I've even seen them go all the way up to $100,000 for, a year. And I'm like, if I got that kind of money, I'm doing something right. Do I really need you? Yeah, I'm kidding. You probably do in a different aspect of your business, but that's a crap ton of money to be charging someone to give them some educational knowledge. And a lot of what they do when they sell it to you is they tie it back to like college education. They're like, well, college education costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm only charging you $100,000. I'm like, yeah, yeah, whatever. But we're trying to make it affordable. So I would say, how do you find these mentors? A lot of them are going to be touting themselves. They're going to have marketing. They're going to talk about how they have programs and whatnot. Those are the people you can go to first because they're the easiest to find. They're basically trying to find you. Have a conversation with them, ask all the questions you can possibly think to ask, really get to learn the individual, learn a little bit more about the program. And then you also have to know about yourself. You have to know how you learn. So like if the program after further due diligence, you determine is basically just a YouTube, online course where it's kind of go at your own pace and you don't really get a lot of help from anybody, aside from just being now a part of a group of a larger amount of people that are now also getting the exact same online course. If you learn very well that way, if you're a very go at your own pace kind of person, then that might actually make a lot of sense for you. So maybe that's the program you should join. You can talk to other couple of programs and see who's got what and who does what, but maybe that's for you. If that's not for you, and look, I am not very self driven in the sense that like I'm self motivated knowing I want to do this business, but if I paid for an online course, I'm not going to do it myself kind of thing. Because there's a lot of people who have drive and they really want to do something in the business. They want to be successful. They want to get out of corporate America. They want to have financial freedom, but they don't have that, like, when they hit a roadblock, they just kind of stop
Hmm.
unless someone else pushes them and gives them a shove and says, hey, it's okay for problems to come up. They need the shove. So if no one's going to be shoving you, then that's probably not for you.
Mm.
And so you need something that's maybe a little bit more one-on-one. So you wouldn't, but it's usually a little harder to find those kinds of mentors because it's not a scalable machine to spend one-on-one time with a potential client. Um, but that's what we do. So we're a very small group, very small program. We've only helped a total of about 100 people in the last 2 years, and we only average around 60 to 65 active students at any given time to make sure we have time to be able to spend with everyone and help them individually because that was the relationship I had with my mentor. So how I found mine, kind of by happenstance, somewhat. I was a part of a local real estate meetup, multiple of them, but I think this is the only one I was paying for. And there was this guest speaker coming to talk, and he was in Pensacola. I was in Mobile. So we were about 45-minute drive away from each other, but still fairly local. And he's coming to speak at the Mobile meetup about syndications, about multifamily. This is right in the midst of me realizing that that's what I wanted to get deeper into. And after he talked about how much experience he had, and he had like thousands of units, it was making buku bucks. He was also a naval helicopter pilot, which was really cool because I was an aircraft technician. So I was like, awesome. We both have aviation in common. I mesh very well with this guy. After the meetup, I basically just built up the courage to go talk to him, even though I had zero value to add because all I had done up to that point was lose 60 grand on a deal. Uh, and he was a cool guy, willing to actually let me take him out to lunch that following week. And then after I took him out to lunch, then taking him out to lunch basically helped me learn a little bit more about him, what he was all about, his business, um, and then ultimately make the determination of whether or not I wanted to kind of go under his wing, hire him, so to say, and have him help me out. So it was a little bit of a happenstance on how I actually found him, but it was just by being plugged in and being involved. You could find people on Bigger Pockets, you could find people on forums, you could find people on virtual meetups, in-person meetups. You never know where they're going to be. And if you're not putting yourself out there and trying to have conversations, then you're never
Right.
going to find the right person.
Right. That's another thing I hear a lot, at least, is people are like, oh, where do I find it? It's like, well, how many DMs have you sent on LinkedIn in the last week, or whatever? It's like, what actions are you doing to find that? So yeah, that's super good advice. I really appreciate that. And you've got like 100 things going on right now, the podcast, the mastermind, obviously I think you just bought a pecan business, which is
Yep.
super cool. That's awesome. How do you balance all those things, and what is the North Star? Like, where are you headed with this?
Well, as far as work-life balance goes, I think there has to be some imbalance before you can have balance. A lot of people want the work-life balance from day one because they're like, hey, I see a bunch of other people doing it and I see that it's possible and that it can be done. Sure, but any startup business ever anywhere on planet Earth takes an immense amount of focus, effort, time, money, commitment. And so if you're not willing to dedicate those things and sacrifice time with the family, sacrifice time with the spouse, sacrifice vacations, make some sacrifices early on, you're never going to be able to get to the point where you actually have true balance on both sides. So the first couple of years, multiple years actually, the first 3 years of being in the business, I didn't even make any money. So there was extreme imbalance and I wasn't making money. So I wasn't really going anywhere. And then another 18 months after that, so it took about 4.5 years before I started actually making money and then had enough to be able to quit. So for 4.5 years, I had some pretty significant imbalance in my life where we didn't go on vacations. The wife and I didn't go on a whole lot of dates. Maybe we should have, but we didn't because I was spending a lot of time, my spare time outside of my 50-hour mandatory week work day job, trying to build the business, trying to go to meetups, trying to read books, trying to listen to podcasts, trying to talk to people, trying to go out and meet folks, trying to raise money, trying to do all the things you have to do to successfully build the business. So now that we've surpassed the imbalance part of the journey, now we're at a point where once I was able to go full time, I was like, wow, this is really cool because once you're full time, you don't have 50 hours a week here and 50 hours a week here making 100 hours. Now you just have 40 or 50 hours a week just once on your business. And so you can balance, you can have your regular life that you so desperately tried to have for so long. On top of, you don't even necessarily have to work 40 to 50 hours if you structure the company right. So if you build the right systems and processes, if you hire the right people, if you bring in the right team, if you start really building quality partnerships, then you start, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Separating or sharing duties with other people that doesn't require you to spend so much time, so much effort in the business. For instance, I have two business partners, and my area of focus is investor relations, capital raising, branding, and marketing. Matt's area of focus is acquisitions, underwriting, looking at new deals, sourcing, talking to brokers. So I still do some of that just because I'm also the face of what we do, which is why I focus on the branding and marketing. So a lot of people kind of come through me first as the top of funnel, and then he takes the conversation from there. But I don't actually have to have a lot of those conversations. I don't have to do a lot of underwriting. I don't have to sit in front of the computer for multiple hours on end. Like there's things that I don't have to do anymore from that perspective. And then Reggie handles all of our day-to-day like asset management. He handles the employees. He handles execution of the business plans. He handles some accounting. We have a full-time bookkeeper and a full-time CPA. But he's like first in line of looking and basically sorting all the financials before he sends it over to them. And so I don't have to do that stuff either. So there's all these aspects of the business now I no longer have to do. So I get to stay in my lane. I get to do what I really enjoy, and I get to work less while I make more because
Mm.
collectively we can do more. For instance, the pecan business we just bought, we bought that 4 months ago, and it was 2 years in the making of literally buying that business. And in the last 4 months, I've maybe spent 3 hours a month in that business, and we've surpassed our goals every month and made money hand over fist every month since buying it. And I barely spend any time, barely do anything in it. There's not much I have to do. We're more of the CEO type roles, me, Matt, and Reggie. And we have, I think, 7 full-time employees that work at the business um, that actually help run a lot of the day to day. And Reggie's actually local, so he can go to the shop and the store and do those kinds of things. Me and Matt don't even live local. We live in Tampa, Florida. The business is in Southern Alabama. So we just work from afar. Don't have to do much.
Cool. If I'm taking that and I'm trying to boil it down, I'm hearing extreme imbalance, like that's necessary and should be invited and welcomed. But the second thing I heard in there was it sounds like you've really developed and strengthened your skill of delegation. Do you have any tips for how somebody else could be a better delegator or grow that skill?
Delegation comes with good leadership. So if you've never read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko
Mm.
Willink, that was one of the books that helped me a lot learn about some aspects of what it means and what it looks like to actually be a good leader from a extreme high quality leader as an ex-Navy SEAL. Um, that helped me both in my personal life and in my business life. But it's not just that alone. Just taking extreme ownership doesn't make you a quality leader. You also have to have the skill set and the knowledge and the empathy, the tactical empathy. You have to be very strategic in the way that you approach certain things as a leader. You can't literally just approach it and appease everyone's feelings. There's times that you have to be hard. There's times you have to be somewhat squishy and soft. But for the most part, you don't want that because you want to be respected. You want to be honored. You want people to do what you ask of them to do, but you still want them to like you. Um, so that book was massively helpful from a leadership perspective. And then I also learned from other leaders. So I literally, to go back to the mentor conversation, I hired another mentor who was this expert leader to teach me how to be a better leader in my own company. And then on top of teaching me how to be a better leader, they also had a part of their company where they hired people for you. So they're like an agency. They would onboard folks into your company based on what it is they thought you actually needed at that time. Of course, it's your business. You have to say so, who you decide to hire and what positions you decide to hire for. But they give you all the advice on like, hey, based on where you're at right now and what you told me that it is that you're looking to do, I think you need someone to run your social media. Like, I think you're spending too much time there and it's not bearing a lot of fruit for you right now. And so you need to get away from that and focus on like sales, focus on talking to investors, raising capital. That's your area of expertise. Eventually we can outsource that, but I think that's what you need to focus 100% effort on right now. So we're going to outsource social media for you, and then you can dive into that. And I'm like, oh, geez, outsourcing social media. How am I going to be able to do that? And so they go out and they just hire people for you. I mean, you're involved in the process, and you get to understand what the whole interview process and sourcing process you're involved in. But they got the whole system and machine behind how to do it, as well as then teach you how to lead and manage your team now that you've done that. So again, mentorship, it goes back to that. So in the last 2 years, because I've been full-time in real estate now for 2 years. So I hired that first mentor when I first started. And that was maybe $10,000, $15,000. And then I didn't hire anyone else until I actually had the chance to retire. So then when I went full time, just 2 years, I've spent over $200,000 on coaching and mentors, and
Mhm.
it has paid massive dividends. I mean, massive. I've probably 30 to 40x my personal income from my own business from the money that I spent.
Mhm. The best investment ever.
Yes, like from the income I was making at my day job before going full time to where I am today is like a 30 to 40x
Yeah.
growth in a 2 year time frame
Yeah.
because of having people give you all the secret sauce. Why are you going to learn it the hard way? Just it dumbfounds me why people are so scared to pay for coaching and mentorship. Um, I think it's because the few ruin it for the many, as what happens with most things in the world. There's a few mentors out there that take advantage of people that charge a lot that don't actually help folks. So word gets around that that's how every mentor is ever, and you don't need a program and you can do it yourself. It's all about me, and you're in your own little bubble, and then your own little bubble can only get so big
Mhm.
before you're not really accomplishing what you want to accomplish, and you may just be failing the entire time and not doing anything right
Yeah.
because you don't have anyone in your inner circle. It's just you. Um, So paying for coaches and finding the right coaches, which goes back to the conversation we had earlier, is also key. You don't just want to hire just anybody, but you can get a lot of recommendations. And like when you talk to people, they'll usually connect you with people that they've had done business with before. And then one of my coaches even recommended another coach. Like I had hired one coach and we'd gone through our stint together. It was like 6 months or 9 months or something like that. Gone through our stint and I was like, all right, man, I still need some help in this. What are we doing? What are we doing now? I'm not ready to just kind of go out on my own and do this thing. And he was like, well, I think you've outgrown me. And that spoke volumes to me because it's like he wasn't just trying to upsell me and
Hmm.
make me pay him more money and then he can't really teach me anything. He's like, honestly, I think you've outgrown me. You're already larger than I am. You're already doing more than I'm doing. There's not much more I personally would be able to teach you. But I'll tell you what, I have a coach as well, and he's leaps and bounds farther, ahead of the both of us. Um, and so I think you should just go straight to him. I think you should go talk to him and see if you can join his program and get his company's help. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I gave it a shot, and it was a great decision.
Huh. Wow. Awesome. Yeah, I love that for sure. I know we're running up on time a little bit here, so just a couple. I'll shoot you off a quick couple fire round questions if I'm referencing bigger pockets. So, um, your biggest failure and what you learned from it.
Definitely that $60,000 loss
That's the one.
on that very first investment. Biggest lessons learned was don't do it all by yourself.
Hmm.
Don't rush into something either. I've always been a very head first kind of guy. I'll jump into something just because I know if I wait and delay too much, it just won't ever happen. Like if I do too much due diligence. Um, but that was a mistake. We should have done more due diligence. There was a lot more we should have done to position ourselves, and we maybe could have avoided it altogether. But then at the
Awesome.
same time, if I hadn't have done that, would I be where I am today?
Right. That's the
So like
question.
it was a big mistake, but it's a part of the journey.
Yeah. Awesome. What are the day-to-day actions that newbies should be taking
It depends on the type of business they're looking to build.
if they're looking to get into syndication multifamily?
But I do think it goes back to the imbalance piece. So be willing to accept the fact that you are going to have to lose out on whatever lifestyle you have now in order to build what you want to get where you want. I mean, when in life have you ever been able to not make a sacrifice and grow? Like when you're working out, you got workout gear behind you, right? It's
Yeah.
not super uh, not painful. Like it doesn't feel awesome, and you're like, this is great, and you wake up early every day and you grind it out because it doesn't hurt and it's super easy. No, it's super hard. It's super difficult. It's freaking painful. You're sore after the fact, and then you got to eat right on top of that. And there's all these steps you got to take, the painful steps you got to take to be able to live that life that you want to live. And it's the same thing in business. If you're not willing to make the sacrifices, you just don't even get in the business because you're not going to go anywhere and you're going to waste time.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Well, last question here is where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can go check out our website at ferraricapital.com. All the links to all of our social media profiles are in there. The podcast is in there. Information about the mastermind's in there. We've got a free ebook in there about syndication. Ton of free resources in there for folks to check out, as well as all the ways to get in touch with us.
Awesome. Man, I really appreciated having you on and your insight and hearing about your journey, your Odyssey. So, man, I really appreciate you and I look forward to being able to talk again soon.
Appreciate you having me on.
All right. Peace out, you guys.